Hey, Donovan, how's it going? My name's Yoni, I'm also in class 5, and I'm just leaving some feedback for people this week. I tend to do this in video form because I just hate typing, and I was just going to go through your shot. It's looking really, really good. I love the way that, your characters are very different, and you've got lots of nice little secondary actions that give a lot of personality to both of them all the way through the shot, so it's some really great work. Um, Looking at some comments for polish and mostly looking at a little bit of hands, face, and just a tiny bit on kind of like poses. When you start off your shot and you've got the character on screen right, he doesn't feel like he's very much leaning up against the wall. Actually, the pose that he's got in frame 110 actually looks like a bit more that he's leaning against the wall just because he's perfectly straight, so his back's like that, and really if he's up against the wall or something, your weight tends to sag like that a little bit. So actually giving him a little bit of a curve actually makes him feel like he's more in contact with the actual wall itself. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny little detail. If you just add a little bit of a curve at the top of where the shoulders and the top of the chest is, actually you'll just get that sense of contact to be just a little bit better. Nice for him to be, doing all these kind of like nice little gestures of swipes and stuff on the kind of like iPhone that he's got in his hand. That's really cool. And the entrance of the second character is really good. Really nice movement with the hips. Nice drag with him as well. And yeah, it's really cool, the eyeline that he's got. There isn't really much comments that I can give to you on there. Just maybe have a look at the arms on frame 13 on the screen left character, because they kind of like go up in a little bit of an arc there, but it just seems that they're not dragging enough. It just seems that they're a little bit kind of like short. You might want to see if you can actually get those arms in shot maybe a little bit earlier, like in frame 11, so there's a little bit more of a sway to them to an extent. It's roughly there, but I think you're just out in the spacing by just a tiny, 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 tiny amount. Just have a look at the arcs there, turn on the arc tracker or something, because it just looks like they just stop maybe a little bit too soon, and I think you've got a little bit of the hands actually going through a little bit of the wrist in frame 39 as he's kind of like lifting up through there. It's tiny, 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 tiny little thing, but just have a look at that, how he lets his arms go. And so currently when he's going into the take where he's going, what are we running down, everything's moving at the same time on that frame. So you've got him anticipating up, he's nice, he's kind of like nice and broken up there, but I think here's where you want kind of like the hips, the chest, and the head to be just a little bit different, because kind of like he's going down all at the same time, and here's a nice time when you can add a little bit of drag and some overlap as things happen. So hips go down, chest drags, head tilts up a little bit, and then comes down. So have a look about breaking up some of the action between frame 37 and frame 48. Round about there, I think it's a nice little place where you can break a little bit of the action up a bit. And with the hands, when they come up here in frame 52, try to actually have the hands, just a little bit softer right now. Currently your hand gestures are really nice, but I think you just need to work a little bit more with the fingers and actually get them to move as well, kind of like with a little bit of extra spacing on them. The gestures are cool, but again, it's kind of like now in that little detail where the hands kind of like, you've got it moving like this, where all the fingers are moving at the same time. Just want to offset some of those frames so you can feel that, the hands closing up and down like that on the hands. And also look out for your silhouette on frame 49. You've got the hand that's kind of like intersecting the body, and there's a little bit of an elbow pop on frame 56 over there, so that can help, just have a look at that, because maybe you can just have both hands separate from the body, because currently he's got one hand which is inside like this, which is fine as well, but maybe I think it's just a pose that you could just open him up a little bit more and have it more separate, and that would make him look even more excited as well. Also be careful with your line of action on frame 56, because he does look like he's a little bit off balance there. Make sure that the S shape that you're trying to put into the body is a little bit more clearer. You might want to exaggerate that just a little bit. So yeah, so as he comes down, excitement. Oh, another thing as well, just noticed, when he's doing his eye darts over here, I think that one of the things that you can do, he's currently very intense because he hasn't got any blinks at all. And let me just double check this for a sec. Yeah, no, it's fine. I was thinking that you could throw in a blink maybe at frame 60, but no, his actual line of thought actually changes on frame, just on frame 81 when he says angel. That's the point where you actually blink, so you're absolutely fine with that as well. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, have a look at the hand on frame 84 as it goes behind his back to frame 90. Feels a little bit stiff. Add a bit of an arc on the arm over here, and continue a bit of a sway, because his hand kind of like flies out, goes straight, and then kind of like tucks behind his hand, kind of like that. Looks a little bit weird. Try to soften it out, because you've got some very nice kind of like, the way that hand goes back is really cool. Just make sure that the way it goes behind his back, I don't think it even needs to go behind his back that quickly as well, because he does it really, really, really fast. Add maybe some 4 frames, so from frame 87, it goes into position in just about, 6 frames over there. Give it 10 for him to reach his pose over there, and that can break up as well, the same thing that you have when you're coming up like that. Leave a little bit more of a settle as well to the body, so keep breaking things up on frame 94, because you've got enough time, because he's going to be in that pose for a long time, to just add a little bit more of a settle. I think maybe like 2 frames to break up the hips, the chest, and the head round the area of frame. Bum, bum, bum. He finishes his action at frame 91. Just play around with that area there. I'm pretty sure you can find something nice there. So I love his reaction. The other guy's reaction on frame 103. He comes up, he looks at him over there. When he leans forward, the hand's kind of like got a bit of a slide here, but I think that one of the things that you can do as well is maybe just have a look at the hips. There's something a little bit weird on frame 123. He's kind of like sliding forward, and then his head's going like forward a huge amount over there. He feels really out of balance by the time he's in frame 103, and I think what you might want to do is that his hips are moving forward, but when he moves to this very extreme position in frame 132, you want to move the hips in the opposite direction. So if his head goes forward, the hips tend to go backwards to counterbalance what's happening, like that. So instead of having his body go bump all the way in one direction, it tends to go like that, so that it counterbalances the way it is. So in frame 132, try to move the hips backwards, so when the head moves forward, so that his chin should always roughly be on top of where his feet actually are, so that he's actually in balance, because here it almost looks like he'd have to take a step. It's a good pose, but I think that maybe you just want to move those hips back to get those body mechanics just working there. I love the way that he kind of like reaches in for stuff over here. Nice little detail of him changing the iframe from one hand to another. But I think on frame 150, let's have a look, when does it start? 155 to 166. You really have to play around with the contact of the fingers here, because currently there's a lot of sliding that's happening on the screen. You're probably aware of this. But try to think on where things fall, and the shapes that you can give to things, on how you cup kind of like this hand as it picks something up, and how things slide between one another, and just break those fingers up a little bit, just to make sure that everything kind of like looks a little bit real. So when he picks up the list that he's got under his arm, it's a nice little detail. I think that one of the things that you can do is actually make that a different color, so that you can actually see that he's got it here right from the start, because it almost looks like he pops it out from nowhere to an extent, and it's nice. It's that you've actually got it there all the way through. I just add a little bit more attention to that list, and maybe change it to a white or a yellow, pale yellow color to make it just look a little bit better. And then you've got kind of like the same thing with the iPhone as well, you know, just a little bit of finger massaging in frame 192. Get the idea that he's actually touching something a bit clearer, like that. So you see the way my fingers kind of like bend to kind of like form a point, like that, because currently your hands are like that, perfectly straight on the surface. Just think about, you know, the pressure that goes between the thumb and the forefingers in frame 92, and you can just play around. It's very much just an idea of getting the fingers in the right shape, and that will just sell the action there. Looking at his face, everything's kind of like looking alright. The only thing I'd say is that his eyes are very much stuck in the almost same pose all the way through. It gives a little bit of character to him, but I think that you can play around a bit more to have a relationship between the shape of the brows and the eyes as well. So if he is in this type of position where his eyebrow's higher and this one's lower, you want to compress this eye here, and you want to stretch this eye up a little bit more, just so that they're not always exactly the same. You know, you can have one slightly higher, slightly rounder, those types of shapes, and just look at how you can actually sculpt in some nice shapes to go actually with the brow movement, so it feels that the eyebrows and the eyelids are actually working together as well. And you can add that on to the cheeks as well with some very, very, very subtle motion around here as well. So yeah, so very much like when he raises his eyebrow over here on frame 249, try thinking about the eyelids as well, and you know, have them drag a little bit with what he's doing. And real nice lip sync, really nice eyes. I like the way that he does this blink and looks over to the other side, but look out in frame 305 for his eyes. He just looks a little bit too spaced out because his pupils are almost half covered by his eyelids. Either lift the eyelids a little bit or just see a little bit more than half pupil on frame 305, just because that way his eyes kind of like still look in character, because currently you're just losing him here at frame 305. And then he looks down. Another thing you can do as well is that this motion that he does of putting the list back under his arm, you can extend that a little bit to put it into the next shot as well. So very much while he's tucking this away and his hands coming forward with the phone, make that action a little bit longer by a couple of frames and continue it in the next shot, so you have him actually settling in to here. Okay, so beautiful pose in frame 325 from the guy on the left. It looks absolutely great. I love the way that he looks up as well, looking kind of like smug and smirky as well. You've got a little bit of the same issue with the eyes. Check the eye lines because he's a little bit cockeyed in frame. The guy on screen right is a bit cockeyed in frame 329. The other guy is absolutely perfect. I like the way that you do the broken joints with the other guy swinging down his arm, but it looks a bit too focused on just the arm itself. He's doing this big gesture with the arm and the entire body is completely solid, and it just makes it feel completely detached because it's such a strong motion over in this part. I'd almost say that for my taste, yeah, I think you could get away with a bit of swing on the hips. You've got a tiny amount, but you could exaggerate that a little bit more. So the same way that he's kind of like swinging down here, put the shoulder into it, maybe give him a bit of some settle up here. But on the hips at the bottom, you can have them just swaying to a side as well as he does this motion. So the arm drops, it swings one way, and then the hips just settle as well at the same time that the arms do it as well. So between frames, you know, 324 all the way down to 350 on the guy on the screen left, try to soften his body out as well so that it doesn't feel that it's only the arm that it's actually moving. And then when he kind of like comes up and looks over what he said over there, I think in this pose as well, another thing that you've got is that the arm that's behind his back just feels a little bit too high, So either push it out a little bit like this, or actually drop it down to the same pose that you've got in frame 365, just because it feels a little bit too forced. It's very characterful, I'll give you that, but at the same time, I think you just want to get it out of that uncomfortable position a little bit faster. And then I think also with the other guy, he looks up, looks a bit smirky as well. I think the in frame 350, the guy on screen right, him looking up so high at the light is just, you know, a little bit distracting to an extent. I think the eye line's just a little bit too high. Also, one of the things that happens is that these guys all feel very disengaged from what's happening right now as well, because their eye lines are kind of like not engaged with each other. They're almost more engaging with the camera, which is fine, but I think that you want to kind of like keep, you know, the amount of time that they look away from each other or from the camera very, very, very short. So have a look at just maybe lowering his eye line a bit on frame 347 all the way to 352. I think you can get to that look down a little bit quicker. And then with the hands as well, he folds his hands across, but it just feels a little bit strange that his other hand is kind of like floating out behind his back over there on frame